Palmer. Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on a Thursday. Working towards the weekend, wherever you may be. Appreciate you making us part of your day here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Lots and lots and lots over the next 2 hours. Matthew Bruni from On 3 talking about what LSU basketball is doing in the early stages of the transfer portal window. Already been some confirmed contact between the staff and eligible players. Had some players on campus. We'll talk with Matthew Bruni of On 3 about that. Matt Trent of WBRZ on Cobble's staff over there at Channel 2. I join him every Thursday on the Sports Takeover. We're going to talk some baseball. I'll do the interviewing this time instead of Matt. So appreciate him for having me every Thursday. But he's going to jump aboard on our show to talk LSU baseball. Joe Healy from D1 Baseball is going to join us at 2:15 in his normal spot to preview the upcoming weekend in Southeastern Conference baseball. And I will give you my LSU Arkansas preview at 2:30, which would generally be a Friday segment. No longer relevant on Friday because, as you may have heard, LSU and Arkansas have moved game one of their series up to noon tomorrow. It's a bummer to those of us that are working. I'll be sitting right here when they play tomorrow. A lot of you will be working or can't get off to get to the box for a game one, and that stinks because this is a very, very highly anticipated series. These are two excellent baseball teams, and game one's going to be a ton of fun, and it's another chance to watch Paul Skeens pitch. He will not get that opportunity at 7 o'clock tomorrow. Instead, it'll be at noon. As much as it sucks for us, the fans, and the people that want to go and watch, in terms of the interest of LSU's baseball team in winning and losing, it's the right call. What you can't have happen is have Paul Skeens go out there, throw 42 pitches in 3 innings, and the skies open up on Friday night, and you've got to can him for the rest of the weekend. Can't have that. You really don't want to have is Paul Skeens throwing 118 pitches on Saturday when the Vols come to town with maybe the second best pitcher in the country, pitcher in the country, however you want to phrase it, on Thursday, and Skeens is on 2 days short of rest. They need to get this game played tomorrow. They need Paul Skeens to pitch uninterrupted tomorrow. They're going to play at noon tomorrow, so I will preview LSU and Arkansas coming up at 2:30. But we want to start with the Sweet 16. 4 games tonight. To kind of give you a thumbnail on all 4 of them. Very much looking forward to the action. I love the round of 64 and the round of 32. It's fast moving. It's upsets. It's buzzer beaters. It's 4 channels going at one time. It's madness. The real good basketball starts this weekend. It's great next weekend, obviously, with the Final Four. Phenomenal. But there's more of it this weekend, and you've weeded out the teams that can't really compete for the most part. We'll see what Princeton does tomorrow. But you're going to start up in New York City, 5:30 TBS, 7-seed Michigan State versus the 3-seed Kansas State. Michigan State, even though the, lower seed at 7, they're a 2-point favorite in this game. And I think it's interesting the dichotomy between the two coaches. Tom Izzo, 28 years as a head coach. He's been in a Sweet 16 now 15 times. Jerome Tang, 1 year as a head coach. His first year as the head man over at Kansas State. Izzo is 10-4 in Sweet 16 games. That's remarkable. And you realize that Michigan State played some good basketball last week. They didn't shoot the ball very well last week. They were 7 of 30 from three-point range. Kansas State has been battle-tested. They haven't had as much experience as Michigan State's program at this level, but they beat Texas in Austin this year. They beat Baylor in Waco this year. They won a game against Kansas in Manhattan this year. They're battle-tested and should be ready to go in this game tonight. The guy that I like to watch and really was introduced to him more so this past weekend than actually when LSU played them and the Caimans, because I didn't watch that game. I didn't pay the $30 or whatever it was to watch LSU and K-State, is Marquise Noel. A little 5'7" guard. He's from Queens, so this is a homecoming for him. 7.8 assists per game for him. He runs the show, even though he's very undersized. And we know what Michigan State is. They're a finely tuned machine. They're exceptionally well coached. They don't make big mistakes. They're every cliche you want to throw out. There's nothing that you would look at on a stat sheet with Michigan State and go, oh, they definitely need to rely on the three-point shot. Or they don't rebound all that well. Or, there's nothing across the board with Michigan State that is eye-catching other than they're not really deficient anywhere, which is basically the Tom Izzo way. He hasn't really done it with the 5 stars. He's done it with older, mature decision-makers that play really well. Kansas State's identity this year is basically twofold. They're 17th in the country in defensive efficiency. They guard the three-point line really well, and Keontae Johnson is their best player. That's kind of the identity of Kansas State. I'm going to take Kansas State and the 2 points in this game. I think the number may be moved a little bit because of Michigan State's brand. That's just a guess on my part. I think a lot of people would look at Michigan State and Kansas State, even though there's a 7 on one and a 3 on the other, and favor the 7 because it's Michigan State. I'll go the other way. I'll take the higher-seeded team, K-State. They've played great teams all year long in the Big 12, and they've played really well all year long in the Big 12. I will take Kansas State and the 2 points tonight in New York City. At 6:15 on CBS, out in Vegas, 8th-seeded Arkansas, 4th-seeded Connecticut. Look, the guard play for UConn is really, really good. They got a backcourt of Jordan Hawkins and Alex Caravan. They both shoot 37+% from 3. That's really good. However, the best player, I think, in the tournament right now is Adama Sanogo from UConn. He averaged last weekend 26 and 10.5. He shot 73% from the floor in the first weekend. And Arkansas's best talent is in the backcourt. It's Black. It's Smith. It's Council, even though he's more of a wing. You're going to count on the twins down there, the Mitchell twins, if you're Arkansas, to deal with Sanogo. I hate that matchup. So the first thing I'll be watching, because I've watched Eric Musselman now operate for a few years and paid attention to how he does things, he's going to be sending the cavalry at Sanogo. He's not going to count on the Mitchells to stand back there and guard him. He may have counted on Trevin Brazil, but they haven't had Trevin Brazil since November, so that's not really apples to apples. The Mitchell twins are who they got now. And I just don't think they can deal with Sanogo. So I'm going to watch how Eric Musselman defends this, and when they throw it down in the post, I think they're going to double a lot. And the question is, are Hawkins and Caravan, who have been great shooters all year long, capable of knocking down shots? For Arkansas, Anthony Black is their primary ball handler. He's dealing with back issues. But at this point, how are you going to bet against Arkansas in this tournament? They're playing for their 3rd straight Elite 8 bid. It never looked like it was connected all the way through into February, and now all of a sudden you look up, Musselman's ripping his shirt off, they're winning games. How are you going to bet against it? Well, I'm going to bet against it because I think UConn's the best team going right now. I mentioned this back on Monday, but UConn blasted Alabama earlier this year. They've got dudes, and now they're playing well. They just hit a lull like some teams do in a long basketball season. But to me, I'm looking at UConn -4. I'll take the Huskies. I think that leaves me fairly open for a backdoor cover there with 4 points, but I just think that UConn's a better team. I'll take the Huskies out in Vegas. Nightcap from New York, 8 o'clock, Florida Atlantic against Tennessee. It's the 9 seed versus the 4 seed. Tennessee, 5-point choice in this game. This is a great matchup of styles. Styles make fights, that cliche. This is a great stylistic matchup. Florida Atlantic shoots the 18th most threes in Division I, and they make 37% of them. They are a good three-point shooting team. They score 78 points per game. The Vols allow 57. That's 21 short of Florida Atlantic's average. But Florida Atlantic, they got through last week and they caught a break. Yeah, you didn't have to play the 1 seed. That helps. But what they do have is a nice win over Florida earlier this year and a weekend in their back pocket of playing quality basketball. I know a lot about Tennessee. I've watched them all year. And what they are is big and mean and physical and tough. So what I wanted to look at with Florida Atlantic, because I wouldn't know this, I watched them a little bit last weekend, but okay, what's their size like? Are they skinny mid-major guys, or are they kind of put together? John L. Davis is a guard for him, north of 200 pounds. Elijah Martin, well north of 200 pounds. Then their big man, Vlad Golden, big old boy, 245 pounds. They've got some size to them, and they can shoot it. Now, the question is, can they get into their offensive sets and create good looks against a Tennessee defense that just puts the clamps on people? I didn't think Tennessee could do it to Duke, and they did. They held Duke in the 50s. Duke's real young. Florida Atlantic's not. So I'm not 100% sure Florida Atlantic's going to win this game, but I like them catching the 5 points. Tennessee, to me, and they did it in the first round against Louisiana Lafayette. They went 5 minutes and just were laying bricks. They were certified contractors out there. I mean, just bricklaying 101. And they can just shut down on offense. And FAU's not great on defense, so maybe that won't happen in this game. But if it does happen, and Tennessee does go 6 minutes where the offense hits the bricks, and FAU throws in 3 or 4 threes during that span, which they're prone to do, that can swing things pretty quick. I'm taking the Owls, FAU, and the 5 points. I like that play a lot. And then the last game of the night, this is the real entree. Not even dessert. This is the entree, the main course. Gonzaga and UCLA from Vegas. Remember last time these two teams played in the NCAA tournament, Jalen Suggs threw in a running shot off the glass in the Final Four to go to the title game. That was an incredibly high-level basketball game, and tonight's going to be too, because Few and Cronin are masters. 3 straight Sweet 16s for UCLA, 8 straight Sweet 16s for the Zags. Just good players, great coaches, and should be awesome tonight. The Zags have the best offense in the nation. They're number 1 in offensive efficiency. If you had any eyes on that television when Gonzaga played Alabama in Birmingham in December, it was jarring. I'm not telling you they play like that every night, but they could not miss. They scored over 100 points on Bama. And that's what they're capable of doing. UCLA is 6th in the country in defense. Can Mick Cronin's team respond to Gonzaga's firepower? Mick Cronin said in his introductory press conference at UCLA, we're going to be a team that people hate to play. That's the kind of attitude they're going to have to bring in this game against Gonzaga. Now, part of that UCLA defense was Jalen Clark, who's a National Defensive Player of the Year finalist, and he's not there. He's out for the year. But they're still plenty deep. UCLA's 11th in the country in forcing turnovers, and Gonzaga, since some early turnover issues, has not turned it over, as you'd imagine. They run things through Drew Timme. They got plenty of other guys, but Timme scores 21 a night. UCLA is a 1.5-point favorite. I will take Gonzaga in this game. I think Gonzaga is very comfortable in this 3-seed role, in this underdog role, and I think they're plenty good enough to get this done. This is going to be an incredibly high-level game. I cannot wait to watch this game, 8:45 on CBS. It'll be the last game of the night, and it'll go late into the night. I don't believe my wife will be making tip-off of this one, but I should be able to make it through the final buzzer, and it's going to be awesome. I will take Gonzaga and the 1.5. So my picks, Kansas State +2 against Michigan State, UConn laying 4 against Arkansas, FAU catching 5 against Tennessee, and Gonzaga catching a 1.5 against UCLA. I'm fading the SEC there a little bit. We'll see how that works out. Didn't work out too good in the first weekend. SEC was all over the place. All right, that's my thoughts on the Sweet 16 tonight. Matthew Bruni on LSU basketball and the transfer portal coming up in 15 minutes. But when we come back, just want to do a little quarter of the way checkpoint on my 5 bold baseball predictions from the week of the opener. See how things are progressing and how I'm looking. Just a little bit of a spoiler. One of them's already out the window. So I'll tell you what that is and what the other 4 look like. That's next in the Hunt Palmer Show.
This is Hunt Palmer. Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
Hey, it's Matt Musso. Join me Monday through Friday for your daily update on LSU baseball with Musso at the Box, presented by New Orleans Flooring, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, and check out New Orleans Flooring. 2 locations, Metairie and Prairieville, or NOLAFlooring.com.
I had to leave my parents. I had to move schools. I don't know anyone here. Everything keeps changing. Why is this happening to me? I'm sure glad you're here.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you.
Louisiana. It's a place defined by culture, by pride, by passion, by people who do more than love this place. They celebrate it, elevate it, champion it. They are the individuals who embody what makes Louisiana great. The companies that make Louisiana a better place to work and live. The nonprofits leading transformational change in our communities. Champions of Louisiana are all around us, and LWCC is proud to celebrate them because we've always been Louisiana loyal, supporting the workers, the innovators, the change agents of this great place we call home. Who are the champions around you? Together, we can share their stories. Together, we can help our home state thrive. Together, we are Louisiana loyal. Always.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walker.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCORoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Healy have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR, presented by the Aesthetic Medicine and Anti-Aging Clinics of Louisiana. Football Tigers back on the practice field, and we'll talk to Kendall Rogers to preview the weekend in college baseball. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Justice Williams just became the most recent LSU basketball Tiger to enter the transfer portal. Had 7 starts in 23 games this year. Guy that reclassified, played last year in a spot where they didn't necessarily want him to play, and then played a little bit on a team this year, but he'll look elsewhere, and that's pretty much a theme with this LSU basketball roster. It's going to be a massive overturn, and we're going to talk with Matthew Bruni coming up here in 10 minutes to discuss where the staff is looking in the transfer portal and what names we should be on the lookout for. But right now I wanted to do a little bit of a quarter season check-in. Still 9 weeks to go in Southeastern Conference play, hopefully some postseason games as well. So just kind of see how my 5 bold predictions from the start of the season are going. The first one we can just throw a big old red X next to. I said prior to the first game of the season, I think it was Tuesday of the first week, maybe even Wednesday, that Chase Shores would start 10 SEC weekends. That's not going to happen because he didn't start last week. So we can go ahead and cross that one off. I loved the progression that Shores was making in scrimmages in January. I had a conversation with someone inside the building. I said, hey, does it look like he may be making a push? And I kind of got a nod like, yeah, it looks that way. And I kind of thought, okay, maybe he doesn't start right out of the chute, but he'll find his way into that rotation. Turns out he did start right out of the chute as a weekend starter, but did not start in the first SEC weekend. Was used out of the bullpen, and I think that's where you're going to see him the rest of the way. So that's going to be a big, fat no for prediction number 1. Prediction number 2, I said that LSU would not have anyone on the team with 8 saves on the season. As we sit here today, your LSU saves leader is Christian Little with 2. And it seems like he's settling in towards the back end of games. So that one's in a little bit of jeopardy. And I would be okay if that did come to pass and Christian Little became your 9th inning guy and he was great and he had 11 saves this year. That would make me happy. It means LSU's winning a lot of games and you found a role for him. I'm still not convinced that Garrett Edwards or Nate Ackenhausen or Chase Floyd or Riley Cooper, or even, any of those guys get called on a given day. Maybe they determine Little's better used once a weekend, so he's only able to get 1 save a week instead of potentially getting 2. And maybe he pitches in a game where you've got a 4-run lead and he gets the last few outs and he doesn't even get a save. So that one kind of inconclusive to this point. You've played 5 weeks. He's got 2 saves. It's pretty close. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to play out. I think it's going to be one to monitor moving forward. So that one's iffy. This one hurts. So they're going to sweep 2 road series in the SEC. It was right there. You got to sweep now 2 out of your last 4 because you didn't get it done at Texas A&M. And I don't think I was necessarily projecting they would get it done at Texas A&M, but it was on their racket to get it done at Texas A&M, and they didn't. The rest of your road series, South Carolina, they're probably better than I thought entering the year. So that's a tough one. Ole Miss, tough to sweep there. They've got to find their way, and they got swept last weekend in Nashville, but that's a tough place to go in there and win 3 games. Auburn's a team LSU can sweep. I've watched Auburn play a little bit last weekend and a few times throughout the non-conference. I don't think Auburn's very good. And so that's one I think LSU can go on the road and sweep. And then Georgia was swept in Athens by South Carolina. That'll be the last one. So I think the way this is going to set up is if LSU can get a sweep of either South Carolina, Ole Miss, or Auburn, any one of those 3, it would come down to the last weekend at Georgia, see if you can get it done. That's a tall task, and if you're a betting person, you would probably bet against that one, but this team's good. And the reason I said I thought they would sweep is because there are going to be weekends like LSU had in Nashville last year, like LSU had really in Gainesville at certain points, where the offense just explodes, and it's just more than teams can handle. And it was almost the case in College Station. Against that Auburn staff, maybe against that Georgia staff, could be possible, but to be determined on that one. The next one, 6 guys are going to hit 10 home runs for LSU this year. They haven't done that a lot, but at this point, you would look at Dylan Cruz, who has 6, and say, very likely, 1. Tommy White, who has 6 in 3 less games, I would say very likely. That's 2. Jared Jones already has 7. He's very likely to get it. That would be 3. Gavin Dugas has 5. Okay, you're looking pretty good at this point. He's not you've only played 21 games. You've got to get to 56. I think you're in pretty good shape there with Dugas. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 4. Braden Jobert has 4. We'll see how much playing time. He did not start any of the games last year, so that's an iffy one there. Brady Neal's only got 1. He's your everyday catcher, so that's very unlikely to happen. Jordan Thompson's only got 2. He's your everyday shortstop. He did hit 1 this past week. Maybe he can get to 10, especially if you get an SEC tournament run, a regional, a super regional into Omaha. It starts to stack up. I remember me and Moscona had a bet back in 17 that LSU wouldn't have 2 guys do it, and Papirski finally hit his 10th one in Omaha. But Trey Morgan, I thought maybe some more power from him. He's got 1 on the year. That's kind of looking doubtful. Paxton Kling is a maybe. He's got 3, and he's playing more. So that's a guy that I could see as the weather warms up and he gets more comfortable with some of the SEC pitching. But if I'm trying to get to 6, my best bet is Cruz, who has 6, White, who has 6, Jones, who has 7, Dugas, who has 5, then some form of Kling, Jobert, Morgan, I think is my best bet to get 2 of those 3 to get to 10. It's going to be iffy. I think if you're a betting person, you're probably betting against that one as well. Kling is the guy that you've got to have get it done, I think. The 3 home run guy, he's got to kick it into high gear in SEC play and maybe knock 2 or 3 out against some of the lesser teams in the midweek. So we shall see. And the last one, and this is the one that I think you can just about throw in a hammerlock to this point. I've got, and this, remember where we were back in the first week of February. Otani, E-A-U-X, Tani, the guy who came from Air Force where he hit 13 home runs. I said Paul Skeens would hit under 5 home runs because, and this is not an opinion, this is the way the building thought in early January, that Skeens would pitch on Friday. He would sit on Saturday unless there was one spot they needed a big swing. He would probably hit against the weaker Sunday pitching and then feast on some midweek pitching. And they kind of felt that way until it became evident exactly what they had in Skeens on the mound. And that happened sometime in late January. And at that point, I think the thought was, okay, I don't need him catching a 95-mile-an-hour fastball off the fingers while he's trying to hit. I don't need him jamming a finger, diving back into first. I don't need him rolling an ankle or pulling a hamstring, trying to go from first to third on a single. And the example I gave to you, the LSU fan, on the air that day was I said, imagine if you had Aaron Nola running the bases 4 times a week. Think about that. Wouldn't sound awesome. And the fact of the matter is the lineup's so deep that it doesn't need another right-handed power hitter. So at that point, I felt pretty good about that prediction, but it would have been fairly bold to say a guy who's got 20 homer potential would not hit 5, and I don't think he's going to get in a bat this year. So yeah, I could talk myself into some sort of senior night, 8th inning, 18-1 game, get in at bat, and then I immediately snap at him and go, why would you do that? Why would you put him out there against a guy throwing 88 miles an hour and risk him getting hit in the hand? I don't think they would. So I don't think Skeens is going to hit. If you listen to some of the things coming out about Paul Skeens and his work ethic and the amount of effort that he puts in to pitching now in the pitch lab and in practices and weightlifting and all the physio that goes into it and film study and everything he's putting into pitching, he's not putting anything into hitting right now. He knows his future is a top 5 MLB draft pick, a quick riser through the minors, and a Major League Baseball starter. Yeah, it'd be fun to get in there against Nichols and try to hit one off the scoreboard, which he could. But is it worth it? The answer is probably not. So Shores is not going to make 10 SEC starts. That's a miss. No one having 8 saves, to be determined. We'll see how that goes with Christian Little. Said they would sweep 2 road series. That's going to be tough, but I think they can do it. 6 guys hitting 10 homers. Story to be written. They're looking good for 4. How do I get to my next 2? And then under 5 home runs for Skeens. I think you can go ahead and cash that ticket. I don't think he's going to be hitting 5 home runs this year. So just wanted to make a little mid-year pit stop. We'll maybe revisit this here in another month and see how things are shaking out. But it looks like a reasonable set of bold predictions there from the preseason. All right, SEC, LSU basketball, digging into the transfer portal. We've got some names. We've got some guys they are targeting, and Matthew Bruni's been all over it for On 3, so we'll get him to jump aboard the Jim's Firearm Hotline next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
This is Hunt Palmer. In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
The best kept secret in town is out. Discover Tallulah at the Renaissance Hotel on Bluebonnet.
Follow us on Twitter at 1045ESPN to cast your vote in the Citizens Bank and Trust poll of the day. Vote daily inside Off the Bench, anytime. Hunt Palmer. And after further review, Citizens Bank and Trust brings you the poll of the day via Twitter at 1045ESPN.
Bayou Ford has $10,000 off MSRP on select new 2022 Ford F-150 trucks. $10,000 off plus 0% financing. And all new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
All right, let's say ah.
Where'd my spotlight go?
Super weird, but we can take care of it.
Get in and get better at Patient Plus.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
I had to leave my parents. I had to move schools. I don't know anyone here. Everything keeps changing. Why is this happening to me? I'm sure glad you're here.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's
Me, Jimmy Out and Charles Handiger for the Thursday edition of Game Time. It's live from Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar, 6 to 8 p.m. Thursday from Jolie Pearl downtown facing Town Square. Game Time on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All Earlier this week, Justice Hill and Kendall Coleman announced their intention to enter the transfer portal, leaving LSU basketball. Just another name here in the last hour and a half, Justice Williams, who spent 2 years here in Baton Rouge, has entered his name into the transfer portal. Matt McMahon going to have a pretty extensive roster turnover here in the offseason. Matthew Bruni of the Bengal Tiger, part of the On3 Network, has been all over it. He joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Matt, thanks for the time. How are you?
Hey, Hunt, I'm doing well. I forgot how busy of a month March is because of the baseball, football, basketball overlap, but we're doing all right.
It's called content here in the radio business. We like it a lot. Surprised at any of the three guys who have entered their name into the transfer portal from LSU over the last week?
No surprise, and I believe it's 4 now with Justice Williams, like you mentioned. So Cornelius Williams was a freshman who didn't play the entire year, redshirted. Kendall Coleman, for those who watched the team, he played a lot early in the season, but I thought he was an undersized center that couldn't really defend well enough. Justice Williams, came here with Will Wade, reclassified and everything, so he was young, and then it never really seemed like he meshed with the new staff. And then Justice Hill, who played the most of the 4, but I think a lot of people that watched him knew his limitations as a small guard, couldn't shoot, and struggled to finish at the rim.
All right, so you got those guys moving on. KJ Williams obviously moving on, so you got a lot of spots to fill. Is there an emphasis positionally, or is it across the board? We got to find just good players.
It's across the board, man. Yeah. They need players. They need players of all kinds, of all shapes and sizes. Obviously, when looking at this roster for next year, you hope you have the 3 freshmen, Jalen Reed, Trevor Ward, and Sean Phillips. That sets you a foundation, and Reed and Phillips are big. Ward is a wing. I maintain that they really need a point guard this year, so that'll be interesting to see how they address it. But they've reached out. They've had contact. I wrote a story yesterday of running down the list of guys they've had contact with, and it's around 16 or 17 right now, and it's all different positions: guards, wings, forwards. They need players right now.
Are there a couple that have reciprocated interest and that LSU's kind of making a play for? I know BJ Mack has been a guy that we talked about on this show from Wofford. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, BJ Mack put out a top 10. LSU was in it. And then furthermore, a story on 3 said that if there was a top 3, I think it was LSU, South Carolina, and I don't remember the third off the top of my head, we're in a pretty good spot for him. So let's just say that they're in the top 3 for him. I think this would be a huge get as a replacement for KJ Williams. Obviously, there's a chance he doesn't come to LSU, so they have to have backup plans, and they've talked to a lot of good bigs, but that's kind of the approach when you have to replace a guy like KJ Williams and the scoring that he provided and the rebounding and the experience. I mean, you can't expect Jalen Reed to step into that role. You got to have a guy like BJ Mack, and a guy who can, potentially be an all-conference player. Obviously, BJ Mack's coming from a smaller school in Wofford, but 17 points per game type guy. I'm interested to see if they can land him.
Any other names that stand out to you as guys they're actively pursuing that may be interested?
Yeah, I think Amari Abram from Ole Miss is an interesting name. He was a freshman this past year, averaged 8 points per game, which doesn't, jump out to people. But, as a true freshman to average 8 points a game in the SEC, that's more than the LSU freshman did. And LSU has assistant coach Ronnie Hamilton, who was a coach at Ole Miss, who recruited him to Ole Miss. So the hope is he's going to be able to recruit him to LSU. 6 foot, I believe 6'5" guard. So that's obviously a welcome sight, especially when you're losing Hill and Justice Williams. So Amari Abram is one that I'm interested in from Ole Miss, and then there's a ton of different names out there they've reached out to. You can go down the list, but there's a lot of high-level guys between like a Jamison Battle from Minnesota, John Healy Pitt, and then you have the smaller school guys like Denver Jones from FIU and Javon Small from ECU. You know how it is. It's either players that didn't play enough or are moving on from their big schools or are at smaller schools looking for a step up.
So I think everybody's well aware that I've looked at everything through purple and gold glasses. I try to be as objective as I possibly can, but that's just everybody's from somewhere, and I'm from right here, and I want those guys to win, and that can cloud my judgment at times. You've always been really good at keeping things right down the middle. What would you say to the LSU basketball fan who checked out on this team, looks at the signing class on 3 and says, you got 2 kids here, none of them are in the top 20 in the country? Like, I don't think that this staff is doing a very good job recruiting. And then I look at these transfer portal stories, and I see that LSU's made contact with 20, 30, 40 different guys trying to pull them in. Is there any reason for optimism that Matt McMahon can assemble a quality tournament-caliber roster next year?
I think there is optimism that they can build a much better roster than they did this past year. I think if you look at what went wrong this year, a lot of it was pretty predictable when you're looking at the players they brought in from the 3 Murray State transfers. Obviously, KJ is the only one that was a star coming over. You get Kendall Coleman from Northwestern State, who I kind of wrote stories about before the year. I didn't think he was going to be able to play. And then even Derek Fountain and Cam Hayes, who ended up being good players, were bench players at their previous stop. I think with what they did last year in such a short time period with so much uncertainty, like, I know people hate, don't want to give them benefit of the doubt because, they lost games and all that stuff. But I really think this offseason they're going to be able to put together a better team, a team that will have, reasonable expectations. And then we'll be able to see how the coaching staff does when they have a little bit more talent. Because you look at teams like Missouri, you look at a team like South Carolina who won 6 games. I mean, if you can just get comparable talent, and then I think McMahon is going to do a good enough job. So I do think they'll be able to get a better roster this year than last.
I know you're a big basketball guy. Who do you like in the Sweet 16 moving forward? You got a pick for a national champ?
Well, before the tournament, I picked UConn, and that's looking pretty good right now. I think that's like the sleeper pick to a lot of people. I've just liked them all year. The bottom left region is hard because it's like Kansas State, Michigan State, and then Tennessee, FAU. I think all 4 of those play tonight. I'll go Tennessee and Kansas State out of that. And then Alabama will make it out of their region pretty easily. Then I have Xavier in my bracket making it out of the region with Houston and Texas. That will be a really interesting region. And then bottom right, I had, was that the UConn region? Bottom right? Yeah. I believe it is. So, yeah, UConn, Xavier. My whole Final Four, no, that's not true. Marquette didn't make it. So UConn, Xavier, and Alabama are still in it for me.
We shall see. For all the information on the transfer portal for recruiting, team coverage, it's all there at the Bengal Tiger on 3. Matthew Bruni, huge part of it. Appreciate you joining us on the show. Thanks, Matthew.
Yep, thanks, Hunt.
It's one of those deals. You've heard me beat the drum now for 2 weeks, so I'm not going to, but I'm telling you that Matt McMahon is hustling right now. And I can't promise you what the results are going to be, but that's where I'm sitting. I think there are a lot of people that are going, well, this thing's cooked. They weren't any good this year. Got no high school recruits coming in. They're not going to be able to get anybody in the transfer portal. And that's like you're just closing the book. I'm not telling you the result's going to be fantastic. I'm just saying, just let it play out. He is hustling right now. And I was curious as to some of the guys that were on the roster and whether or not they were going to be able to transfer a second time. And it looks like that's going to be possible for Kendall Coleman and for Justice Hill to move on. And they're going to clear 6, 7, 8 roster spots on this team, and then they're going to have to go in there and replenish the shelves. Got to find a point guard. BJ Mack would be a great haul. I like Amari Abrams as well, and what his potential is. So I think things have a potential of turning around here in the next 60 days for LSU basketball, but I'm just curious to see how things look. All right, still got a lot to get to here on a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. In hour number 2, Matt Trent from WBRZ is going to join me to talk LSU baseball. Joe Healy in his normal slot does an awesome job for D1 baseball. We're going to talk about the SEC weekend that is to come, and I will preview LSU and Arkansas coming up at 2:30. If you missed this, LSU and Arkansas are going to start their series tomorrow at noon, not 7 o'clock because of impending weather in Baton Rouge. So close out hour number 1 next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
The tournament is heating up, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. It's because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. It's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/1045ESPN and sign up today to claim your no-sweat first bet. Then you can wager on everything from the money line to point spreads to which team will be cutting down the nets. You want to fade Alabama? Love it. Fade them. I'll be right there with you. It's all in an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no-sweat first bet. Up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/1045ESPN to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Must be 21 and present in Louisiana. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issues not withdrawable bonus bet that expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. If you're somebody who has a giving problem and wants help, call 1-877-770-STOP.
Our listeners fire off their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Louisiana. It's a place defined by culture, by pride, by passion, by people who do more than love this place. They celebrate it, elevate it, champion it. They are the individuals who embody what makes Louisiana great. The companies that make Louisiana a better place to work and live. The nonprofits leading transformational change in our communities. Champions of Louisiana are all around us, and LWCC is proud to celebrate them because we've always been Louisiana loyal, supporting the workers, the innovators, the change agents of this great place we call home. Who are the champions around you? Together, we can share their stories. Together, we can help our home state thrive. Together, we are Louisiana loyal. Always.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walk.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCORoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Healy have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one. You. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Play-by-play of the 2023 NCAA Men's Basketball Tournament continues Thursday at 8 p.m., Friday at 6 p.m., Saturday at 4:30, and Sunday at 12:30, right here on your home for the 2023 Final Four. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I'll tell you a little bit of a personal story here. It's every once in a while you say something and you just want to slam your foot right down your throat, put your foot so far down your mouth. And that happened to me a couple years ago. I was in New Orleans at my cousin's house before I was going to attend a wedding. I was by myself, and I was watching a football game, and my cousin and her husband were gone. She had twin boys who were 2 and were asleep, and their babysitter was there. So I was talking to their babysitter. We were just watching this game, and some like lineman picked up a fumble and started running, and she made a comment like, "That guy's huge." And so I'm sitting there, and I'm not trying to like be impressive or anything, but I felt like it was a reasonable follow-up to her comment that the offensive lineman on the TV was huge. I said, yeah, I actually used to cover college football and college basketball and talk to these guys day to day, doing interviews and whatnot. And you just can't really believe like how much bigger they are than people you see day to day on the street. Like some of these offensive linemen or power forwards, tight ends, they're just 6'5", 260 pounds. Like you just really don't see people like that all that often. And I didn't think that, I wasn't trying to like impress anyone. That was my job at the time. So I told the babysitter this, and she looks at me and she kind of smiles. She's like, yeah, my brother actually plays for LSU. And I go, really? What's his name? And she goes, Foster Moreau. At that point, I wanted to stick my foot right in my mouth. I was like, okay. So I'm telling you how much bigger these football players are than people that you see day to day. And literally someone who grew up in your house is 6'6", 245 pounds. It's one of those deals where I thought I was the smarter person in the room, and I was just acting like, it sounded like an idiot saying that. I tell you that story to say there's a very loose family connection between me and Foster Moreau. His sister babysat for my cousin for a number of years with her little ones, and they got to know the Moreau family real well. And obviously just devastating news yesterday that Foster, in the course of a physical with his hometown team, the New Orleans Saints, was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And Foster, as you would expect, took to Twitter and said, look, I'm gonna kick this thing's butt, and I'll be back to regular scheduled programming in no time. And we all certainly believe that. Foster's been nothing but an absolute fighter since his days back in high school. Just barely grabs an offer to play at LSU and becomes a really good player for LSU. But I don't think, for me, when he was a sophomore, junior, I'm not looking at this guy going, he's a surefire 5-8-year NFL, 10-year NFL vet. He becomes number 18 on the program, a leader on the team, and then is selected in the NFL draft and has carved out a really nice young career in the NFL. And then at this point, you see that he's had an opportunity to come back home, the Jesuit product, and potentially play for the New Orleans Saints. What a dream scenario that's got to be unfolding for him. And all of a sudden, you get that news like, hey, got some other things to deal with here. And so obviously everyone in the LSU community, everyone everywhere is sending all their best thoughts and well wishes to Foster as he begins this fight against cancer. And we all know that he's going to come out on the other end of it as strong as ever. That's real strong. It's a guy you've not seen the last of Foster Moreau, and we're all pulling for him here from the LSU community. Just jarring news when you see something like that. And I mean, as Charlie said on his show, and this is not something I was aware of, but if you weren't listening to Charlie's show, this is the second time Saints medical staff have caught a life-threatening situation with a player that they were putting through a physical. So it's, as Foster put it, kind of miraculous that you got to put him in this place where you've got to go through a physical to change teams, and the medical staff there is able to identify it and go, yeah, we got some work to do here. So we're all pulling for 18, Foster Moreau. I know that Jacob and T-Bob had some thoughts on it this morning. They're guys that know him very, very well. I don't, as I mentioned, I've got that very, very loose family connection that my cousin's family knows him very well. But we're all pulling for Foster. That's just terrible news that he got yesterday about the Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosis. That'll put a bow here on our number 1 of a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. I do want to tell you that next Thursday, I will be out at Rally Cat Brewery from 3:30 to 5:30. It's going to be an awesome day. It's Major League Baseball opening day, and I'll be out at Rally Cat. It's right there just off Segan on Pennywood, right behind Marucci. And for opening day, they're going to be cooking up some brats. They're going to have all their beers out there, and we're just going to be hanging out from 3:30 to 5:30. I'll be watching the Cubs. There'll be other games on. We'll be drinking some beers and eating some brats, and it's kind of a tailgate party for LSU in Tennessee next Thursday night which will be game 1, Skeens versus Dolander. So vibes should be really good over there at Rally Cap. So we invite you 3:30 to 5:30. Come on out. I'll be hanging out, and we can watch some baseball, talk some baseball, and enjoy some great beers over there at Rally Cap. So very much looking forward to that next Thursday, a week from today, at Rally Cap Brewing. If you missed any of our first hour, Sweet 16 preview at the top of the show, talking to you all 4 games that are going on tonight in Vegas and NYC. Checked in on my 5 bowl predictions for LSU baseball. See how those are looking through 5 weeks of the season. Matthew Bruni from the On3 Network, the Bengal Tiger, talking transfer portal and basketball. Lots to get to in hour number 2. We're going to be guest heavy in the first half hour. Matt Trent from WBRZ talking baseball. Joe Healy from D1 Baseball previewing the SEC weekend to come. I'll also give you my LSU and Arkansas preview. So all baseball in hour number 2 coming at you after SportsCenter. Stick with us. You're listening to the Capital City's leader in sports talk. That is, of course, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
I had to leave my parents. I had to move schools. I don't know anyone here. Everything keeps changing. Why is this happening to me? I'm sure glad you're here.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Louisiana. It's a place defined by culture, by pride, by passion, by people who do more than love this place. They celebrate it, elevate it, champion it. They are the individuals who embody what makes Louisiana great. The companies that make Louisiana a better place to work and live. The nonprofits leading transformational change in our communities. Champions of Louisiana are all around us, and LWCC is proud to celebrate them because we've always been Louisiana loyal, supporting the workers, the innovators, the change agents of this great place we call home. Who are the champions around you? Together, we can share their stories. Together, we can help our home state thrive. Together, we are Louisiana loyal. Always.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walker.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCORoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Healy have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
I'm Doug Brown. ESPN has learned LeBron James might be able to play for the Lakers in the last week of the regular season. James has been out for almost a month with a right foot injury. Zion Williamson of the Pelicans is now cleared for on-court activities, but he'll be out at least another 2 weeks with a strained right hamstring. ESPN's Kendrick Perkins believes the Pels should consider trading Williamson.
If I'm the Pelicans, at what point do I really sit down at the table and say, is this a guy that I could rely on for my future to have as my franchise superstar guy? And if you're not concerned, then you're lying to yourself.
Kendrick Perkins on Fitz and Harry. The Sweet 16 tips off tonight with doubleheaders in New York and Las Vegas. 11 different conferences represented in the Sweet 16 this time. The Big East and SEC each have 3 teams. ESPN's Jeff Borzello reports Kim English will be the new head coach at Providence. English coached George Mason for the last 2 seasons.
A championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Now, Hunt Palmer. Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Holding down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studios. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2 on a Thursday, Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Thursdays, WBRZ's got the Sports Takeover, where you can find me and Matt Trent, who's our next guest on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. However, as you're all pretty well aware, especially those of you who've been watching on YouTube, I have a huge hole missing from my face because I can't shave properly. So, Matt, am I still eligible for tonight's show if my face has a hole in it? Look, it's TV. I mean, they let me sit here on YouTube and do radio stuff. That's one thing, but y'all are fancy.
Look, let me tell you, don't let anyone tell you that media people aren't athletes, because I don't want to hear about load management. I don't want to hear about any of these late season injuries. The grind is coming back from a two-time razor
2 weeks in a row
injury survivor, Hunt Palmer.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll show up then. We'll be 6:30 tonight on WBRZ. Matt, appreciate you coming on. Your overarching thoughts on this LSU baseball team through 5 weeks, as good as advertised?
Yeah, I really thought that this weekend against A&M was one of those prove it or lose it weekends, because look, as much gripe as especially you and I give A&M, that's a very solid baseball team. That's a very veteran baseball team, especially in the lineup. And I thought that, the first 2 days were just extraordinary. And I thought up until, the 8th inning of Sunday, it was really good too. But I think we answered a lot of questions, especially with the lineup, especially with the depth of this team. The starting pitching is just fantastic. I know Thatcher Hurd didn't do as great as everyone expected, but I still think that is a premier weekend rotation. That lineup is just amazing.
Obviously, you played a little college baseball on the mound. I mean, what did you make of the Skeen's outing is what it is, the other 2 guys who struggled to get out of the 5th?
Yeah, I mean, Ty Floyd is, in that Saturday spot for now. I think he's been another one of these guys that has shown just such great progression over from last year. I think about last year at Hoover. If my memory serves me correct, pitching against Tennessee.
Yep.
The number 1 team in the country, and held his own. And then I really think, that was kind of a springboard for where he is now. Look, he gave up some hard hit balls, but, I think honestly he's still trying to hone in on his new quote unquote stuff. The fastball is up a couple miles an hour. The breaking stuff is a little sharper. And same thing kind of with Thatcher Hurd. They're still trying to feel themselves out and how they fit within this weekend rotation. But look, if we're going to talk about pitching, Paul Skeens, on the broadcast and on social media, everyone is giving him Steven Strasburg comparisons and Mark Pryor. Back in the day, I mean, that's who you wanted to be compared to. So I think everything else, all things considered, I think the pitching is pretty as advertised.
As far as the bullpen goes, do you have any roles in mind for specific guys?
You know, I really do like Christian Little in the closer spot. You know, I know in that 8th inning that when A&M erupted for those 4 runs, you know, he had the walk with the bases loaded to make it 6-5, and then he gave up the hit, you know, that scored, you know, a couple runs. But other than that, like, I think his cutter is just devastating. And if you think back to closers, I believe there was a really good one in Major League Baseball that only had one pitch as a cutter, and that would be Mariano Rivera. And I think he had a halfway decent career in the big leagues. You know, you and I have talked about it a little bit. I just think, like, getting to him for, like, a setup guy is the question mark that I have. I know before him at A&M was Chase Shores, and I'm not sure if he's kind of, from a control standpoint, ready to be in those late innings. But the stuff is there. And Jay has even said he might, even as good as Christian has been, he might have to do a closer by committee type deal moving forward, just because he doesn't know, you know, who can obviously pitch in that situation, but also who can bounce back quick, you know, because he hasn't had to throw a lot of guys multiple times in a weekend just yet.
Matt Trent from WBRZ, our guest here on the Jim's Firearms Hotline on Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. As far as offense goes, I'm curious what you think about the freshmen as they kind of find their way. Jared Jones scuffled, then white hot. Paxton Kling got really hot, and now he hit the skids last week. As far as the freshmen go offensively, what have you seen?
I think one of the big things for me, with a freshman look, and Jay Johnson has spoken about this, the learning curve in the SEC is tremendous. It might be as steep as any baseball conference in the country. I mean, look, I know the summer circuits and the travel ball is what they are, you know, right now, and you're going to see elite pitching in the summer, but seeing it every single day in a weekend is a lot different than just seeing it once a week in the summer. And seeing these guys bounce back after tough outings and, like, tough plate appearances, you look at Jared Jones. If you go back and look at every single game where he's gone, like, 0 for 3, 0 for 4 with 3 or 4 strikeouts, almost every single time he has bounced back the very next game with a 3 for 4 and a homer, 2 RBIs, or 2 home runs and a ton of RBIs. That, to me, just says, like, the mental capabilities of these freshmen is unlike anyone in the country right now.
They've certainly been very, very impressive. In your time interviewing these guys and interviewing Jay, what do you think about the vibe of this team? I'm curious to talk to people that cover them day to day, because I'm sitting here in a chair and not doing that. They're good. I mean, do they act like it?
You know, that's crazy, because I remember the freshmen that came in when I was in college, and they were just dorks. You know, they were 18 years old. They, you know, had they had a very immature way of looking at college and what it means to be a college athlete. And I know that a mid-major program like University of Richmond is a lot different than LSU, but these dudes come in so prepared, and they are so just mentally and obviously physically way ahead of anybody else their age. And look, like, Paxton Kling is going to be a draft-eligible sophomore. Brady Neal should be a senior in high school right now. And you talk to them, and they're the most humble, but they're also the most focused kids I think that I've talked to in a long time for their age. And you can see it in the way they play, like Paxton Kling. I know everybody has, you know, been kind of iffy on him because his production has been in waves a little bit. There's a lot of peaks and there's a lot of valleys. But you talk to that kid, if he goes 0 for 4 and you talk to him, you would think he's just gone 4 for 4 with 3 home runs. Like, that's credit to Jay Johnson too. Like, getting these kids ready for failure and having them to succeed through failure as well.
How do you think it goes this weekend? They're going to move the start time up to noon on Friday, see what they can get in on Saturday and Sunday. But Arkansas comes to town with the quality team.
Yeah, I mean, look, I thought that was a good move on Friday, and I think I saw your tweet that was like, you needed to make a Paul Scheme start count.
Yep.
You know, like, and I couldn't agree with that more. Jay Johnson didn't want to have a Louisiana Tech and Ole Miss weekend where we get to a certain inning, and then they just cut the lights out on you. Don't roll the tarp out and be like, oh, sorry, we got to cut this one short. Apologize for it. Sorry. So, I think it's going to be a tough weekend. Look, Arkansas is coming in here with like 14 straight wins, and they haven't played a home game. They haven't played an away game in almost like 20 games. This will be their first true road contest of the weekend. So I think a lot of things favor LSU. I think minimum it's 2 out of 3 again. I don't think there are going to be very many weekends where we can't say that. I'll be honest, I would not be surprised if they went out and swept this weekend.
That would be very, very good if they could do that. All right, tell the people where they can find me, you, and the gashes in my chin talking baseball on the Sports Takeover.
Yeah, we're gonna find. You can find myself and the walking wounded Hunt Palmer tonight on WBRZ 6:30. It's on WBRZ Plus at 6:30 Sports Takeover, and both of us are going to be going through a little bit of the same topics that we just talked about here, maybe a little bit more. But the good thing is that the camera is so far away from the desk, you won't be able to see Hunt's wounds live and in living color. So that's a plus.
Love to hear that. That's why I love the people over at WBRZ. You can also find those on YouTube. They're posted up on WBRZ's channel. Matt, thanks so much for the time. See you tonight.
No problem, man.
He is Matt Trent from WBRZ. Matt played a little baseball in college, and I've enjoyed the first 3 weeks of us kicking things around over on the Sports Takeover at WBRZ Plus. So been a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, I always enjoy our chats every week with Joe Healy from D1 Baseball, part of their SEC Extra team. He does such a great job. They got the Highway to Hoover podcast. They've got a bunch of feature stories and columns up over there at SEC Extra, part of the D1 package. And he's going to join us coming up next here on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This March, protect yourself against upsets with Bracket Parlay Insurance on FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, all customers can get up to $25 back each day if your parlay of 3 legs or more falls 1 leg short. I gave you my March picks for tonight. I got Kansas State, I got UConn, I got Florida Atlantic, I got Gonzaga. You package those in a parlay, it could pay pretty well, because with the parlay, you can turn a small bet into a slam dunk. And with cash out, you're calling the shots. You can close out your bet whenever you want before the game is over. Just sign into your FanDuel Sportsbook account or go to FanDuel.com/1045ESPN to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com/1045ESPN. Make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Must be 21 and present in Louisiana. Bonus issued non-withdrawable bonus bet that expires 7 days after receipt. Max bonus bet $25 per day unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. If you or someone who has a gambling problem wants help, call 1-877-770-STOP.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
I had to leave my parents. I had to move schools. I don't know anyone here. Everything keeps changing. Why is this happening to me? I'm sure glad you're here.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one. You. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Louisiana. It's a place defined by culture, by pride, by passion, by people who do more than love this place. They celebrate it, elevate it, champion it. They are the individuals who embody what makes Louisiana great. The companies that make Louisiana a better place to work and live. The nonprofits leading transformational change in our community.
On Fridays, Off the Bench. We'll recap day 1 of the Sweet 16 and preview day 2. Plus, it's time. SEC baseball back at the box. Off the Bench, 7 to 10 a.m., 104.5 ESPN.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Let's head right on back out to the Jim's Firearms Hotlines, where we'll find our guy Joe Healy from D1 Baseball's SEC Extra Team. Joins us every Thursday here at 2:15. Does so now. Joe, how are you?
Doing well, Hunt. I appreciate you having me on again.
Absolutely. We always enjoy it. Let's go back to last weekend first. Your thoughts on the Tigers taking 2 of 3 in College Station?
Yeah, good series win. This first series are always kind of feels like a boxing match where the first few rounds end up just kind of testing each other out. I mean, oftentimes the opening weekend of SEC play feels a little bit like that. So for the Tigers to come out and play as well as they did behind Skeens to start off was a huge deal. And Skeens, of course, showed again why he just feels like he's on another level from everybody else in the game right now. So that's just such an advantage for LSU. And I'm not overly worried about that last game. I think A&M is probably slightly underperformed where their talent level is. And so, I kind of thought they'd get a game there. Now, you don't like that it happened in a late game situation where you lose it that way, but ultimately I don't think there's too much to see there. And I'm also not overly worried about Hurd and Floyd with their short starts. I think those weren't great starts for them. I agree. But I also think, just given the history of Jay Johnson managing pitching staffs, and obviously in tandem with Wes Johnson here, they tend to kind of pull the ripcord early as opposed to sticking guys out late. And with some of the talent that LSU has in the bullpen, they're in a luxurious situation where they don't have to try to wait around to see if someone figures it out.
How does Missouri sweep Tennessee?
They played really well.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of a bunch of things. So one is that, and look, Tennessee would never use this as an excuse. Missouri would also not probably say that this was as much of a factor, but the weather really sucked. And Knoxville is not a tropical paradise in mid-March either, but that it was uniquely cold. I've gone to games in Columbia, Missouri. It is always windy. It is, even on days when it's pretty warm outside, it feels cold. So the weather was just tough. I think that's a factor. Missouri also, I think there's a lot of emotion in that series. Tony Vitello is a Mizzou alum. There are a lot of Mizzou fans that really wish Tony Vitello had been their head coach at some point. I don't know if they could have kept him, but it sure would have been nice to have him for a while. So there's some emotion there, I think. Mizzou also played a really good series, and I think Tennessee also, I think this is a team that's kind of starting to learn tough lessons about this isn't the same team as last year, and that means they're going to have to find new ways to win. They're going to have to come together as a team and find team chemistry, because for all the hate they got, whether you loved it or hated the way they, some of the stuff they did last year, you can't argue against the fact they clearly had really good team chemistry. So it feels like they're still trying to kind of find that. So ultimately, sure, you don't want to start off 0-3 in SEC play, but I wonder if this might not actually be the worst thing for Tennessee that they got hit like this early. Because if you remember last year, they never really, sure, they lost the one series to Kentucky, but they didn't really truly get popped in the mouth until the Super Regional, and at that point it was too late. Yeah,
you mentioned the weather, and I distinctly remember in November talking to Paul Maneri about an impending April series in Columbia, Missouri, and he was terrified that the weather was going to be bad in April because he had a bunch of Southern boys down here that he didn't know they were going to go up there and handle it. I think they probably did okay, but that's something that it is a factor up in Columbia that's not necessarily the case in Baton Rouge. One more from the weekend that was in SEC play. There's tons of things we could talk about, but it just catches my eye when Mississippi State goes up to Lexington and is almost non-competitive. What are we looking at here?
A team that is really fighting it. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they start to work their way out of it a little bit. They're too talented. Last year, it was like the injuries just were too much for them ultimately to overcome. This year, they've been relatively healthy. They're just not playing well. And so I think on some level, this is what this team is. I think the high-end optimistic projections for what Mississippi State could be, I think maybe those are off the table now. Could it be a team that still fights for a regional? Sure, if you go ahead and assume that 10 or 11 SEC teams are going to be in that mix. But I just think that they're a team that doesn't really have any cards to play anymore at this point, because if there were obvious answers to what ails them, we would have seen fixes by now, because Lord knows they've tried things. They're on version like 3.0 of a weekend rotation. They've moved guys in and out of the lineup. They've moved some pieces around. They're trying to, kind of threw a freshman catcher into the fire because Luke Hancock was struggling to throw runners out. And, the stat that really stands out to me, you can look at the errors, you can look at the walks. I mean, they're the worst defensive team statistically in the SEC. They've issued more walks than any pitching staff. But they've already allowed 13 pass balls. Last year, they had 3 the entire season. And that team was bad last year. And they had 3 pass balls. So it's just a team that clearly is having a little bit of a crisis of personality, I guess you could put it. And I thought this might be, I don't want to say I ever expected them to struggle the way they have, but I've been talking a lot the last year or so about how, look, Mississippi State was a team that kind of came together because they dealt with a lot of chaos, right? The Andy Cannizzaro situation, they get to Omaha with the interim coach, Gary Henderson, then they hire a new coach, Chris Lemonis, and that works out pretty well initially. But that group of, Jake Mangum and Tanner Allen and Rowdy Jordan and Elijah McNamee, and that group was really, really tight, clearly. And those guys have all filtered out now, and it feels like they just haven't quite figured out who they are in the post-that group world.
It's weird to see. Mississippi State welcomes in Vanderbilt this weekend to Starkville, so it doesn't get much easier. We had this discussion last week about, okay, well, what is Alabama as they head to Gainesville? And I love March Madness, and I was watching basketball last Thursday, but I flipped on Brandon Sproat for half an inning, and I had to stay because that was unbelievable what he did. They head to Oxford, the Florida Gators do, and Ole Miss got handled by Vanderbilt staff, and now Sproat shows up on Friday in Oxford. Your thoughts on that weekend series?
Yeah, that's what happened to Ole Miss last weekend was bizarre because it happened on 2 fronts, right? Like, so if you'd have told me going into the weekend, well, Vanderbilt's pitching is so good on the high end that they slow down Ole Miss's offense enough to where Vanderbilt wins the series. Or if you told me, actually, it's that Vanderbilt's offense, which has been a question mark, Ole Miss's pitching is so beat up that Vanderbilt was actually able to get some things done and they win the series that way. Either of those seem plausible to me. Instead, both happened largely. They wore out the Ole Miss pitching staff, scored more runs consistently than they have all season, except in their midweek games, and we know how those are just a different animal. And their pitching staff shut down a offense that looked like a juggernaut the first few weeks of the season. So that was really kind of bizarre, and you're right that Florida is not exactly a good antidote for what ails you when you're struggling like that. And I tried to, when I wrote about it after that Thursday night game last weekend, I tried to put it into words, and it's just hard to do, to explain how much better that version of Brandon Sproat was than what we've seen from him in the past. I went on your show earlier that day and said, yeah, we're still kind of waiting on Brandon Sproat to show another gear. Well, voila. His fastball typically is fast, but it doesn't have a lot of life on it. Like, it's hittable. It's to the extent that 99 and 100 is hittable. You can get him. He doesn't really have great feel to spin, typically. He's not a guy who can really pitch off his off-speed pitches. Well, he did all of that over the weekend. His fastball had ride on it, and that's new. I talked to Alabama coach Brad Bohannon, after the game and later in the weekend after the doubleheader on Saturday, and he just kind of shrugged because it was like, what were we going to do? Like he was just really, really good that day. And if that's who Brandon Sproat is now, look out, because I thought he might be, especially when Caglione got going this year, I thought he might be the 3rd best guy in that rotation, which speaks to how talented they are. But I don't know, man, like, that was a different Brandon Sproat, and I'm excited to see what's next.
So how do you see that weekend in Oxford, Ole Miss, and Florida going with the Rebels at 0-3 in league play?
I chose Florida in our D1 baseball picks. I wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss comes out kind of reinvigorated and, in front of a raucous home crowd. Like, all that stuff can play a role, but Florida's just too good right now. Their offense is maybe a little bit, and this goes without saying, Wyatt Langford not expected to play, although he is ahead of schedule. So he might be coming back sooner than later, but is not expected to be, as far as I know, ready to go right away in this series. Their offense did look a little light. Like, it feels like in his absence, they were kind of having to play around a lot with like who they were going to move into that position. But the offense is incredible top to bottom. The starting pitching is really, really good. Yes, they still have some questions in the bullpen, but it's not a talent problem in the bullpen, I don't think. I mean, it's still plenty of stuff. So I think Florida's too much for Ole Miss at this point, but it's the SEC and Ole Miss is talented. So I wouldn't. I mean, I learned in the first week of SEC play this season that I shouldn't be too declarative on some of this stuff because you never know.
You really don't. LSU and Arkansas coming up starting at noon tomorrow at the box. Of course, LSU was in College Station last week to play A&M. They will play Tennessee next weekend. Those two teams play each other in Knoxville this weekend. Tennessee's 0-3, A&M's 1-2. It's a 30-game sprint, so it's not some kind of must-win weekend or anything, but it feels fairly important early on for these teams to get it rolling now.
Yeah, I mean, if these teams are going to be both teams kind of come into it thinking if we're going to finish, if we're going to be in a discussion, be a national seed, for example, this is kind of a series that we need to get. Now, they're not. You make a good point that neither team will be ruled out of stuff like that if they lose it, but you have to come in with a little bit of a sense of urgency. And I think for Tennessee, the big key is, can they get their offense going against the Texas A&M pitching staff that looked a little vulnerable last weekend? I think I may have said on your show at some point that, look, A&M's pitching has actually been a little bit better than I expected. Well, last weekend they seemed to take a little bit of a step back, and some of that is because it's LSU's offense. I get it. But, they've had to shuffle some things around now. They've moved Chris Cortez out on Sundays. Justin Lampkin is in. We'll see how that goes. I think it's an opportunity for a Tennessee lineup that hasn't totally come around yet, and I think the evidence of that is after getting swept, their lineup on Tuesday in their midweek game featured just Blake Burke and I think one other guy who had been regular starters. So clearly Tony was like, we need to shake things up and send a message here. So I think this is an opportunity for the Tennessee offense to come out and reassert itself against the Texas A&M pitching staff that even in the midweek game against Rice, and Rice is not a very good team right now, showed some signs of crumbling a little bit. And so I think there's an opportunity for Tennessee to get back on the horse. And A&M, maybe more than any other team in the SEC right now, I'm not entirely sure what to make of. So I think there's a lot just to be learned about A&M this weekend.
All right, let's talk about LSU and Arkansas. Tell me about the Hogs team that Dave Van Horn brings in. I know they shuffled the weekend rotation and had a little different role for Hagen Smith last week.
Yeah, they did, and it worked. I mean, and we saw this from him before. He pitched out of the bullpen late last season and was kind of electric in that role. So while I was surprised they moved to the bullpen a guy whose ERA is, closer to 1 than it is to 2, you can't argue with the results because not only was he good, but they moved Cody Adcock into the rotation, and he was great last Sunday. Now, granted, against an Auburn team that is really going through it right now and is really banged up, but that to me is the big question, though, with Arkansas against an offense like LSU's is, okay, they've problem solved on the fly on the mound really, really well this year. The move of Hagen Smith has worked. The move of Hunter Holland, not only into the rotation, but to Friday has worked. Will McIntyre has pitched really well in the rotation, and now they've moved Cody Adcock in, and he's great. And so it feels like everything Dave Van Horn and his staff, Matt Hobbs, have touched has turned to gold on the mound so far this season. But doing that against the LSU offense is going to be a whole nother deal. So the matchup of the LSU lineup and the Arkansas pitching staff is kind of the key matchup for me. The other thing, and I would urge your LSU fan listeners, is to appreciate what Dylan Cruz is doing. Hitters don't hit 515 or whatever it is through 5 weeks of the season. And look, I don't want to put limits on him because he's maybe the best college player that I've seen since I've been covering the sport. It's unlikely he keeps hitting 500, but man, he could be in for a historic season in terms of some of his numbers. And the only real downside there is that the SEC batting record is so far out of reach. It is kind of a bummer we may not get to see that because in 1983, future big leaguer Dave Magadan hit 525 for Alabama. And I just don't think anyone in this SEC with the pitching as good as it is ever going to do that again. But I would urge Tiger fans, appreciate what you have in this guy, because you might be watching a historically good season for an individual hitter in college baseball.
We saw Rafe Rhymes flirting with 500 really late and ended up hitting it well into the 400s that year. Rafe's a good buddy and was a great hitter at LSU. Cruz, a little bit different animal. He's just been sensational now for 2.5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard for someone with the hype coming into his college career to live up to that. But if it's possible, he's actually exceeded it. That's just hard to fathom, honestly.
Really is. Joe Healy, part of SEC Extra on D1 Baseball. Check out the Highway to Hoover podcast and head over to D1Baseball.com and check out the SEC Extra tab. Their content is just fantastic. We love having them each and every Thursday here. Joe, enjoy the baseball this weekend. We'll do it again next week.
Appreciate it. Talk to you then.
We sure will. Always enjoy our chats with Joe Healy. When we come back, I would generally preview the LSU and Arkansas series on Friday because it would start on Friday. And it does start on Friday. However, it starts at noon on Friday, so it'll be in the fourth inning by the time I would get to my preview segment tomorrow. So I'm going to give you a kind of all-encompassing look at the Arkansas Razorbacks and the team that LSU is going to see this weekend coming up next on the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com. Just go to the website, onebathandclosets.com. Check out all of the testimonials. Check out all the work that David Duvall and his team have done. And imagine that in your home. David Duvall and his team have been in this game for 30 years, remodeling and redesigning bathrooms. And they've just added closets here recently, and they are fantastic at what they do. They can customize a closet to your exact needs. Nobody needs the exact same closet. We all have different needs. What would yours look like? The process starts with a questionnaire. Give your answers. What do I have? What do I need? What do I want? And David Duvall and his team will put a customized solution together to fit your needs. And the best part is, if you tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you, then you're not going to charge to rip out the current closet or to build the new one. You're just going to pay for the charge of that unit. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. I can promise you this. When you go to David Duvall's team at One Bath and Closets, you're not going to have them complete their work. Something goes wrong 2 weeks later, and they got to come back and fix it. It's not going to happen. They're going to do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. OneBathAndClosets.com.
Our listeners fire up their opinions on the JimsFirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the JimsFirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one. You. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
I had to leave my parents. I had to move schools. I don't know anyone here. Everything keeps changing. Why is this happening to me? I'm sure glad you're here.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the
Matt Moscona inviting you to join us for Thursday's AFR, presented by the Aesthetic Medicine and Anti-Aging Clinics of Louisiana. Football Tigers back on the practice field, and we'll talk to Kendall Rogers to preview the weekend in college baseball. Join us 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, let's get you ready for LSU and Arkansas this weekend. Hogs coming to town, ranked 5th in the country. It's a huge showdown, and I know we're going to lose a little bit of the juice tomorrow with a noon start. I think there will be some people that still get out there. They'll still have, 5,000 or so in there. The most important thing for LSU, though, is that Paul Skeens has an uninterrupted start. That's just what you need. I remember Paul Maneri just staring at weather reports and grinding over weather to send Aaron Nola out there, because you just can't have a pitcher that level be compromised and only able to throw 3 innings in a weekend that means a lot, which these conference weekends do. So best thing for the baseball team in terms of winning is getting this thing done at noon, and then you figure it out if you need to play 2 on Saturday. I mean, Sunday's forecast looks awful. The weather's just not going to do them any favors this weekend, and that stinks, but there's nothing you can do about it. So they're going to play at noon, and we'll get you ready for it right here. This Arkansas team, by now you know, if you've listened to this show at all, what they've dealt with injury-wise in terms of pitching. Jackson Wiggins was very likely going to be their Friday night guy. He throws 100 miles an hour, and he was going to be a linchpin in their rotation, out for the year. Cody Frank was their best reliever through basically 3 weeks. He had thrown 11 2/3 innings for him. He had been very good. He's out for the year. And then Brady Tigert, their closer, hurt the first weekend, not going to be back for another month. So LSU's not going to have to deal with him. So that's 3 big pieces to the Arkansas puzzle that they no longer have. So what they had done with the absence of Jackson Wiggins at the beginning of the rotation is they had started Hagen Smith on Fridays. He started 4 games and was very, very good in the non-conference, no question. He's left-handed. He's got good stuff. It's 91 to 93, and the breaking pitches are very good. And he had been fine. But Dave Van Horn looked at his bullpen, saw us a little bit depleted, knew what Hagen Smith meant to them as a bullpen arm last year, and said, okay, if I have a starting rotation that's a little bit in flux, if I can use Hagen Smith to get me multiple outs in multiple games to impact winning multiple times on the weekend, I think that's best. So last weekend, he moved Hagen Smith out of Friday into the bullpen. He decided to go with Hunter Holland on Friday, Will McIntyre on Saturday, Cody Adcock on Sunday. That doesn't mean anything to you. I'll tell you about them in a second. But here's what Hagen Smith did as a result of being pulled out of the weekend rotation. He threw 45 pitches on Friday against Auburn and got the last 9 outs and shut the door. He came back on Sunday and threw the last 2/3 of an inning and nailed down that game as well. Good stuff out of the bullpen, able to pitch twice in a weekend. Arkansas sweeps Auburn, all good. So Hagen Smith's going to be in the first game that Auburn has a chance to win, whether that's Friday, late innings to close it down, whether that's Saturday, late innings to close it down. If they don't use him on Friday or Saturday, they may start him on Sunday if they think that's best, or they may go back to Cody Adcock and start him. We haven't seen that scenario yet, but the first time Arkansas has a chance to win a game, Hagen Smith's going to pitch. So what does that mean for the other 3 guys in the rotation? Well, the first guy you're going to see very likely tomorrow, although I haven't seen this announced, is Hunter Holland. Hunter Holland is a lanky left-hander who I watched on tape today, and I would describe his stuff as pretty pedestrian. It's 89, 90 miles an hour fastball, sweepy breaking ball, and he's been pretty good this year. He threw 6 innings against Auburn last week. I think Auburn stinks. He got him out. It was fine. He struck out 24 and 26 2/3, so not over a strikeout an inning, which dynamite stuff would do. He has also walked 9. Batters are hitting 232 off of him. I think Hunter Hollan is a pretty average SEC pitcher in terms of matching up with SEC aces on Friday, whether that's Paul Skeens, whether that's Brandon Sproat, whether that's Carter Nolan or I'm just blanked on the Vanderbilt kid's name, left-hander. He was fantastic last week. I'll think of it in a second. To me, Hunter Hollan does not stack up tomorrow. Does not. Will McIntyre is a veteran right-hander who pitched on Saturday for them last week. That fastball is low 90s, 90, 91, 92. Good breaking ball. He struck out 22 in 26 and 2/3 innings. It's not plus stuff. It's average SEC starter stuff. And Cody Adcock is an Ole Miss transfer. Carter Holden. No, I just couldn't think of that for the Vanderbilt. Cody Adcock is the Sunday starter for Arkansas, and he was inserted last week. He's an Ole Miss transfer that went to community college last year, and he's got some strikeout numbers because he's got some pretty good, the fastball gets up to 93, 94, but he's also allowed 11 earned runs in 18 and 2/3. His ERA is 5.30. All three of these guys pitched 6 innings last week, so that plan worked. I think LSU should hit these guys. It just, to me, does not look like an intimidating staff. I think LSU's offense is going to be just fine this weekend. They'll be just fine most weekends. None of Arkansas's 3 starting pitchers I watch on tape and go, oh. Jackson Wiggins, I would do that for. And at times, Hagen Smith is like that. The fastball can get up to 94, and the breaking ball is real. So if he comes in the game, that's a tough spot for LSU. But Holland's left-handed, McIntyre and Adcock are right-handed, and I think they're fairly average. Where Arkansas is not average is in their lineup. They have a great lineup, in my opinion. And it's uniquely positioned to face LSU because so much of their offensive firepower is left-handed. Jace Bohofern is hitting .406. He leads the team. He's left-handed. Jared Wagner's second on the team in hitting at .390. He's got 9 home runs. He's been great. He's right-handed. But the next 4 in terms of batting average in this Arkansas lineup, which makes 5 of the first 5 of the top 6 hit left-handed. Tavian Josenberger, switch hitter. He'll hit left-handed against all 3 LSU starters. Kendall Diggs, left-handed. Peyton Stovall, Houghton, Louisiana product. .323 hitter, left-handed. Brady Slavens, veteran for Arkansas, hits left-handed. So, again, 5 of their top 6 hitters hit left-handed against Skeens, Floyd, and Hurd. So, go out there and get them out. They've got some thump. I mentioned Wegner has 9 home runs. Kendall Diggs has 6 home runs. Jace Bohofern has 5 home runs. They've got a really good offensive team. And in my opinion, for Arkansas to come in here and win 2 of 3, they're going to need to score a lot because I think LSU is going to score. The other part of this, and I'm not a meteorologist by any stretch of the imagination, but I can look at weather.com or WeatherBug or whatever app you want to use. The wind's coming out of the south pretty much all weekend, and tomorrow at times it's like 20 to 25 miles an hour. That's straight out. So there could be some home runs hit over the weekend. And that's fine with me. I would rather the forecast say 20 miles an hour out of the south than deal with what they dealt with in College Station last week where the wind's blowing in 15 miles an hour and it's 51 degrees. I want this LSU lineup hitting. I want them to have to go through Dugas, Morgan, Cruz, White, Kling, Jones. I want those guys swinging in hitters' conditions. LSU will miss some bats. Skeens will miss some bats. Little will miss some bats. Cooper keeps everything down. I mean, that's what I would prefer, and that's what it looks like over the weekend. So, again, if you're just jumping in your car, missed the announcement earlier today, LSU and Arkansas, game 1 tomorrow, noon. It still says on the SEC's website that's going to be on ESPN2. I'm not going to confirm that for you right here, but there's a possibility of that. Either way, you'll be able to stream it one way or another. But LSU and Arkansas scheduled for noon tomorrow, first pitch from the box. If you can get out there, Jay Johnson's saying please get there. But I think LSU's program is probably more concerned with Skeens pitching 6-7 innings than they are with getting 10,000 in there, which is a bummer. but it's what's best for the team trying to win the baseball game. So we'll be on the air when they're playing tomorrow. We'll be heavy on football, women's basketball, and some other things tomorrow. But Tigers and Hogs, that should get you ready for it from the box in Game 1 tomorrow. Big weekend series. I guess I need to make my prediction on that since I'll be on the air for tomorrow's game. I think that Arkansas will get a game this weekend. I think they're good, and they're going to hit. I do think LSU wins 2 of 3 this weekend. That's kind of what I had for against Texas A&M, and the Tigers were right there to get a sweep. Any win where you get 2 out of 3 or a sweep against Arkansas is great. That's a quality baseball team that Dave Van Horn's bringing down there. So I guess that's my official prediction right there on the record. LSU gets 2 of 3 this weekend at the box. All right, come back and close it out with us. Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
LWCC is Louisiana loyal. They're elevating and celebrating champions of Louisiana. We're so thankful here on the Hunt Palmer Show that we get to elevate and celebrate these champions of Louisiana because LWCC gives us this platform. And in March, we've been telling you about Trey Godfrey. Trey has really dedicated his entire career to bettering the city of Baton Rouge. Currently, he's the Senior VP for Policy over at the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, and in his work there, he oversees education reform, helping mold the minds of our young people here in Baton Rouge, and that allows him to make an impact from a systemic perspective. Trey is certainly a champion of Louisiana, and we've loved telling his story here on the Hunt Palmer Show. If you know of a person like Trey who's doing great work with young people in our community, if you know a business that's doing some great philanthropy in our community, tell us about it. Go to lwcc.com/champions, lwcc.com/champions, and nominate them so they can be a champion of Louisiana and we can help tell their story. Trey Godfrey, March's champion of Louisiana. LWCC is Louisiana loyal.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Musso. Join me Monday through Friday for your daily update on LSU baseball with Musso at the Box, presented by New Orleans Flooring. Wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, and check out New Orleans Flooring. 2 locations, Metairie and Prairieville, or NOLAFlooring.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Hi, I'm Brandon Landry, founder and CEO of Walker.
Hi, my name is Dr. Craig Green.
This is Ryan Terrio with HUDCORoofing.com.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. No matter how big your commercial roofing job, HUDCO can help.
My patients come to me because they trust that I can get the job done at a high level. Ryan Terrio and Richard Healy have the same level of trust when it comes to roofing.
If you have a roofing issue, call HUDCO Roofing.
Give us a call, 364-1007, and we'll come to your house and give you a free inspection.
At Auctioner, we know healing is a team sport. That's why we've partnered with world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. James Andrews to create the Auctioner Andrews Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute. Whether you're a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, our team of specialists are dedicated to getting you back in the game. So whatever your reasons are for reaching your personal best, we've only got one: you. Auctioner Andrews Institute. Long live you.
I had to leave my parents. I had to move schools. I don't know anyone here.
Join me, Jimmy, and Charles Handiger for the Thursday edition of Game Time. It's live from Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar, 6 to 8 p.m. Thursday from Jolie Pearl downtown facing Town Square. Game Time on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
You're listening to Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, closing up shop here on a Thursday. Let's play a little Take It or Leave It. Taylor Sharp.
Yeah, let's knock it out. So the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Cuban says they will file a protest of their 127-125 loss to the Warriors after a controversial possession call gave the ball to Golden State in a crucial moment. Not accepting a loss, take it or leave it.
I'll take it in this instance. I think he's got a little bit of a case. I don't think he'll win. But what happened was, if you miss this, it was actually late in the third quarter, and there was a loose ball that went out of bounds that triggered a media timeout, and the Mavs believed it was their ball. It was their ball. Yeah, the Mavs believed it was their ball. And they go to the timeout, and apparently no one ever told them that in the break they changed it to the Warriors' ball. So the Warriors go to inbound, and the Mavs are not on that side of the court because they think it's their ball. Well, they inbound it to the Warriors. You just pass it in for a layup and make a layup. And no one ever told the Mavs it was not their ball. So they were all on the wrong side of the court. And Cuban was not very happy about it. He called it the worst call in the history of basketball. And then, of course, the Mavs lose by 2, so they played the game under protest. We'll see what comes of it. But it was, I mean, for the entire Mavs team not to know where to be standing in an NBA game, it feels a little bit like a misstep by the refs.
Gotta pay attention, guys. Eric Musselman will leave his shirt on tonight. Take it or leave it.
Can I know the outcome of the game? I guess I'll leave it. Like, I think this is Musselman's thing. I think his thing's going to be taking his shirt off. And it's a kind of a weird thing. And I don't really approve of it. I think it's fine to show a ton of emotion. That's what sports are about. Certainly what college sports are about. And if he's your coach, you love it. And if he's not your coach, you hate it. Same way everyone hated Will Wade that wasn't in Baton Rouge, and he was banging on scores tables and yelling at people. And everybody in Baton Rouge loved it when he did that. And now they're looking at Matt McMahon, who's standing there a little bit more stoically, and think that's crazy. But it's a matter of who you're pulling for. I'm not pulling for Eric Musselman, but I don't mind if he shows emotion. I just don't need him to rip his shirt off because I think it looks kind of dumb. So I bet if they win a tight one tonight, it'll come off again.
I feel like there's so many unlikable SEC basketball coaches.
Yeah, I hate all of them.
More than any other sport. Musselman, Pearl, Calipari, Nate Oates.
I like Pearl. I hate Oates. I think I like Buzz Williams a little bit. Mike White, I don't really care about. Stackhouse, I don't really care about. But there's plenty. I mean, Oates is king of the castle. He's the top of the food chain.
All right, last one. Philly slugger Reese Hoiskins was carted off during a spring training game today. Cancel spring training. Take it or leave it.
Got to cancel spring training. Got to cancel the World Baseball Classic if guys get hurt. God. You got to cancel that, so you got to cancel spring training. That's just it. People can get hurt sometimes. And playing in the World Baseball Classic is not extra baseball because you would be playing in spring training anyway. So, I'm on board if they're overusing pitchers in the World Baseball Classic of saying, hey, that's really not a good idea. But guys just playing, you can do anything in spring training too. And that's unfortunately looks like what happens to Reese Hodkins. So that's going to be a big deal. Of course, the Phillies were in the World Series last year. He was a huge part of it. And he was carted off the field today. So that's not great. How are the nerves for the rehearsal dinner tonight, Taylor?
Oh, we're good. We're good to go, man.
We giving a little bit of a toast? Are we not doing that? How do we feel about it?
Well, I think the best man's going to do a toast. I just gave a toast at my buddy's wedding back in December, but a quick thank you. Thanks for stopping by, that type
good.
of thing.
And tell the bride how awesome she is.
Then we're all going to get on with our night.
That's right. Tell the bride how great she is. Thank parents and all that, and then get on down the road. I like it. Look, as a guy who gets married all the time, I understand how rehearsal dinners go. I've got a lot of experience in that department. So any advice you're looking for, I'm happy to lend a helping hand. But good luck tonight. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. All right, that's it for a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Do want to remind you, next Thursday, a week from today, from 3:30 to 5:30, we'll be out at Rally Cat Brewing, opening day of Major League Baseball. Got their delicious beers out there, got the brats going. We're going to be out watching baseball as kind of a pregame to going out to LSU in Tennessee for Skeens and Dolander on Thursday night at the box. So if you're not doing anything next Thursday and looking for somewhere to be, Rally Cat Brewing is going to be an awesome place to be. That's where we'll be. next Thursday. So fired up for that. Tomorrow's show going to be from 1 to 3, presented by Cork's Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Very much looking forward to that. If you missed any of our show today, Sweet 16 preview, my 5 Bowl baseball predictions and how they're going. Matthew Bruni on the basketball transfer portal. Matt Trent from WBRZ talking baseball. Joe Healy, SEC extra of D1 baseball. He was with us as well. You can always catch our stuff on demand at 1045ESPN.com's on-demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and, of course, YouTube, where you folks are hanging out in the Bayou Ford chat. Jimmy Ott's game time tonight from 6 to 8. All the madness will be going on. Matt's about to drive you home from 3 to 6 on After Further Review. Everybody have a great Thursday. Enjoy the hoops. We are back tomorrow, 1 to 3, same time, same place. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.